Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Taryn, and today we are doing my labor and delivery story, as you can tell by the title. I assume that you probably found my video either searching for labor and delivery stories and you've watched a couple, or you are a fan of my channel and you watch all my videos, and I love you guys so much. So if you aren't already subscribed, we would love for you to subscribe down below and like this video. I would greatly appreciate it because it would help me out so much. My channel is still very small and I would love to get some more viewers on my videos and know that people enjoy watching what I'm putting out. So to start off today, I do want to say that I did have a pretty crazy labor and delivery. It wasn't by the books by any means. My pregnancy was very much by the books and very much straightforward, so it was weird to turn around and have a labor that was so unpredictable, I guess, or unplanned. And I do want to also let you know that it's been quite a while since I have had the baby, so I may have forgotten like little details. So if I like say, oh wait, like or get kind of out of order, that's why. I've tried to video this 3 times now, and it just keeps getting farther and farther away from when I gave birth. So my little baby girl, her name is Ayla. She is kind of asleep right now, but if she wakes up before the video is over, I will show you guys to her. She's sleeping right here beside me, and she is 7.5 weeks old today. So she is almost 2 months. I cannot believe it's been 2 months, but let's go ahead and get into my labor and delivery. So it starts out with me just going to my regular doctor's appointment. I was going to a 39 week checkup, and I had an induction set for the following Wednesday. So this was a Friday. I was supposed to go in to be induced on the following Wednesday. Every one of my appointments had been very calm and collected. I hadn't had any issues, anything like that. So coming into this one, I expected the same. We get into my appointment and it was going as usual, and the doctor went to listen to the baby's heart rate, and he didn't really like what he heard. He didn't listen for very long, but he immediately was kind of like, hey, I want to put you on a 20-minute monitor just to kind of see what's going on with their heart rate and if I can get a better look that way. And I said, okay, cool, whatever. I'd never been on a monitor before this. So they went ahead and brought the monitor in, and the doctor had to leave because he had a couple surgeries that day. So he left the office, but the nurse stayed with me and they put the monitor on me, and I did the 20 minutes, and then they sent a picture of the strip to the doctor to see what he said. They said that the strip looked completely perfect up until the very end, and right at the end, the variability of her heart rate. So when your heart rate is normal, it bounces up and down like on a heart rate monitor. So it will bounce from like 120 to 160. So like 120, 140, 130, 120, whatever. So it will bounce around to different rates, and hers was kind of getting too flat, so it wasn't having enough variability. So it was going 130, 130, 130, 130, 130, and they didn't like that, and they weren't sure why, whether it was just a sleep pattern or whether there was something going on. So the doctor wanted me to go ahead and go to the hospital and get a 1-hour non-stress test, which is just basically the same thing I just did, but for an hour long. So we were like, okay, cool. Well, we checked into the doctor's office at about 11 o'clock, and at this point, it's almost 1 o'clock. And my mom and I had a muffin on the way to town, but we hadn't eaten anything else. So we decided to go ahead and go over to the hospital because we were hoping we'd just be there for an hour and we'd be leaving. We didn't plan to stay. We didn't even think that it really was a possibility that we were gonna be staying. So we ended up just going straight over to the hospital. We got on the monitors and everything, and they started tracking me. Midway through, the baby's heart rate dropped. So it like dropped down into the like lower 100s, 90s, 100s, something like that. And the nurse was kind of like, whoa, what's going on? And they were watching it. And then they checked my blood pressure, and I had, out of 3 consecutive blood pressures, I had 1 blood pressure that was a little bit high, and the the 2 right after that were perfectly normal. So after I had 1 high blood pressure, they considered that a high blood pressure, and that was a high risk or something. So then they started wanting to take blood. They wanted to check all this stuff because I had a high blood pressure. In reality, I only had a high blood pressure because they were telling me my baby's heart rate was weird and sending me to the hospital to be checked out. So it wasn't anything bad. It was just me a little bit worked up. But in reality, I was pretty calm for what was going on. But I did have the 1 high blood pressure. So then they came in and wanted to take blood. And so they were putting an IV in, and they said, let's go ahead, or they were, I guess, drawing blood, and they said, let's go ahead and put an IV in as well. And that's when I looked at the triage nurse and said, I'm not going home, am I? And she was like, well, I don't make those decisions. So a few minutes later, the doctor on the floor, which is like the, I guess, what do they call them? I can't even think of the word, but it's like the doctors that are on the floor all the time, like a student doctor kind of, she came in and was like, hey, I talked to your doctor and he doesn't feel comfortable sending you home because we're not sure what's going on. So we're going to go ahead and admit you today, right now. And I was like, oh, okay. And so we went ahead and got admitted. And he said that he had told her that they didn't feel comfortable sending me home since I lived an hour and a half away from the hospital, just in case there was something going on. And I wasn't early. I was like, I think I was the day before due at this point. So, or I guess 2 days before due, but we were like, okay, we'll go ahead and induce today. So we got checked into a room, and the nurses came in and they told me they wanted to start with something called a Foley. So if you have never heard of this before, it's basically where they insert a catheter into your cervix and then they squirt water into it and blow it up like a balloon. And then it just sits in there until your cervix opens enough to let it out. So basically it's just adding pressure on your cervix to help it open up. And they start with this and they put it in, and they check it periodically, and it's supposed to, by the time it comes out, you're supposed to be dilated to about a 3 or a 4. So they did that and they put that in, and sometimes that puts you into labor on its own, just having your cervix dilate more. So when I initially, before I got it put in, I was dilated to a 1. They put the Foley in and everything was okay. I really didn't think it was too painful. And then a couple, like maybe an hour after I got it put in, I got in some kind of weird position and I was in horrific pain for like 30 minutes and I could not stand the pain. And so I let the nurse tried to like pull on the Foley to see if it was loose enough to come out. And holy crap, I thought I was in pain before. She pulled on that thing and I about came off the table. Oh my gosh, it hurt so bad. So then I was like, nobody's pulling on this again. It's gonna fall out on its own. We're not pulling on it. So I ended up getting comfortable back into a different position and just waited it out. I got up to go to the bathroom about another hour later. And so this is probably about 3 o'clock. And maybe it was later than that. Maybe 4 o'clock or something. Probably close to 4 o'clock. I got up to go to the bathroom and the Foley fell out when I was going to the bathroom. So that came out, and then I kept asking the nurse at this point if I could have something to eat because I hadn't eaten anything all day other than that muffin on my way to town. But I hadn't really eaten, and I felt like I wasn't going to have any energy if I didn't eat anything. So we went ahead and discussed it with the nurse, and she was like, yeah, I think I can give you something light like a sandwich or something. And I said, okay, great. Anything is better than nothing. So just bring me a sandwich or whatever. So at that point I was still on monitors. Of course, they were just monitoring the baby the entire time, so constant. And so she would come in to check the monitors, and every time she kept coming in, she never had my sandwich, and I kept like, okay, are you gonna bring my sandwich? And she kept finding some reason she couldn't. And then eventually she comes in and goes, okay, well, the doctor wants to go ahead and start Pitocin now and get it on board, so I can't give you a sandwich if we start Pitocin, and you're gonna have to be in the bed from like now on because you can't get off the machine if you start Pitocin. So they're gonna have to like, you know, cath me if I have to go to the bathroom. They're gonna have to do all this stuff. So I'm like, oh gosh. And so I'm like, why? So I looked at the nurse and I said, why are we rushing the Pitocin? I thought we were supposed to see if the Foley would help me go into labor on its own. I feel like we're rushing real quick to try to get this in, and I wanted to eat something before and all of this. And she said, well, those are some good questions. How about you ask your doctor? And so I was like, okay. She said, I'll send him in. He's actually on the floor right now. So this was not the doctor on the floor. This is my doctor. My dad's coming in, so I might have to pause for 1 second and then I'll be back. Okay, so somebody was being a grouch. So I had to grab her with me. But anyhow, what I was saying was that my doctor was actually on the floor, so he came into the room and he told me that basically the only reason that he wanted to go ahead and start the Pitocin right away was because it's going to take a long time to go ahead and get my body to progress. Sorry, my grandpa's here, so he's off doing stuff over there. I can hear him. But my body was going to take a long time to progress, so we wanted to get it on board as soon as possible. But he didn't have any problem with me going ahead and having a sandwich and going, bless you, and going ahead and doing a couple of the things that I wanted to do in my labor plan. So I went ahead and took some time to walk around the hallway and try to get my body started on its own. So at this point I was dilated to between a 3 and a 4 because the Foley had come out. And so I walked around the hallways for a while, and then I went back on the monitor for a little while, and then I got to take a bath in the jacuzzi tub, and I washed my hair and got ready and settled for the evening. And I did get my sandwich, by the way. I did get my sandwich. So all of that happened, and it was about midnight by the time we got settled back down and ready to start the Pitocin. Oh, you're all right. So then at midnight we started the Pitocin, and every 30 minutes they were taking me up 2 notches. So I would go up 2 notches each 30 minutes. The nurses were basically constantly in the room because she was on and off the monitor. So every couple minutes she would move and get off the monitor, and they'd have to chase her. So there was someone in the room all the time, either turning the Pitocin up or finding her on the monitor or something. And so we didn't sleep at all night. And about 4 o'clock in the morning, so I mean, we got on the Pitocin. I hadn't had an epidural or anything. At about 4 o'clock in the morning, I started getting to the point where I was kind of in pain, and I was wanting to go ahead and try to maybe call my doula. So we called my doula at 4 in the morning, and she came up to the hospital, and she helped me get in some different positions and stand up and do different things to try to deal with the pain a little bit before I got the epidural. So I was going to try to push out and see how long I could go without it. So I didn't get the epidural, but I did call the doula, and she came up for a while, and we worked on that. And whenever we would get up to about a 15 on the Pitocin, her heart rate would start doing that flat thing again, and we'd have to take the Pitocin back down to a 7. So we'd get up to a 15, have to cut it in half to a 7. Then they'd push a bunch of fluids in to try to clear that Pitocin out of me and calm her down, and then they'd start back up to try to get to a 15. So we tried that a bunch of times. I mean, about 3 times probably, up to a 15 and then back down, and it never fully got us anywhere because she couldn't handle the contractions when I'd get up to a 15. So I wasn't dilating fast enough. I had finally got up to a 5 at about, I don't know, probably 6 o'clock in the morning. The next day I got up to about a 5, and we were still working with the Pitocin, trying different positions, different things like that, and nothing was really working. They kept mentioning, oh, we're gonna have to possibly do something else if we can't get anything to progress. They ended up finally breaking my water. She was up at a -3 station, so she was so high that they were afraid her umbilical cord could come out before her, and if that would happen, it would have been a major emergency. So they went ahead and broke my water after so many hours of no progression, just to see if that would help anything. At that point, she did drop down to a -2 station, but I didn't get any more dilated, and so I was still pretty far off. So I was at a 5, -2, and about, I think they said 70 or 75% effaced. And so at that point, we were still just trying the Pitocin, slowly but surely working our way up. And at about 25 hours in, which would have been about 2 o'clock this next day, I ended up getting an epidural. Sometimes that helps progression too, and it didn't do much for me either. It didn't do anything. And then I was stuck in the bed at that point. So we did that, and we still were having no luck, trying different positions in the bed, everything we could to progress, and nothing was working. So finally they came in and said, okay, well, we have tried everything. There's nothing else we can do. I think we're going to have to do a C-section. And I'm like, okay. And so this was definitely not the plan, but we went ahead and did it. There was not really a choice in the matter. And I went ahead, and I had already had an epidural, so they just had to up my dosage, and they went ahead and took me back. So we went back at about 7 o'clock to get prepped and ready, and we had a baby by 7:37. The crazy thing was how when you go back into the OR, you don't have any family members with you when you initially go back. And they didn't tell me that I thought my mom was going back with us initially, and they didn't tell me that she wasn't going to get to go back. So I was like, got into the room, and I realized my mom wasn't there, and I'm like looking around like, why is my mom not here? She was just following me. And then it's like really bright lights, and it's a white room, and it's just, and you're like can't move because you're numb all the way up to your chest, and your body just feels heavy, and there's just people running around prepping all kinds of machines and all kinds of things around you. It's just a weird feeling. And then eventually they went ahead and brought my mom in, and then I calmed down a lot more. I was never super worked up about the whole thing. But if you don't know, I don't know if you watched my channel before, but my husband is on a deployment, so he was not there any of this time. He was on a FaceTime with me almost through the entire thing. I did make him stop and go to sleep. I think he actually went ahead and went to sleep for about 4 to 5 hours at one time, and then he woke back up and went ahead and got back on FaceTime. But the whole ordeal lasted about 31 hours. So that was a long time for him to have not slept and trying to be up and talking to me. So when we did go to the OR, they did let my mom take my phone back there with her to be able to FaceTime. So she was holding the FaceTime with me, and I was talking to him. And then after the baby was like close to coming out, she put it up over the curtain so he could see, and then over with the baby when they were checking the vitals and everything. So he got to see everything. He saw the baby way before I even got to see her. Daddy saw you before I did? And so that was awesome that he was able to do that, even though he couldn't be here. And I did have a photographer that was back there, so I got some awesome pictures that I'm so happy that we have. And she got to come back. We did have to fight with the anesthesiologist a little bit to get her allowed in the back, because he didn't want to allow her. But after a little pushing, we did end up getting the okay to have her. So she came back with us, and we made it all work. But at 7:37, this little beauty was born, and she is almost 2 months old now. I can't believe that it's been 2 months. But she weighed 7 pounds and 13 ounces. She was 20 inches long. Are you guys gonna look at them without the pacifier? You're gonna be a happy girl? Be a happy girl? 20 inches long. And she is very happy and healthy. She has grown so much in those last couple months, and she is just thriving. She's a very good baby, and she was very, very good to me in my pregnancy as well. So they say that either your pregnancy is really bad, your labor is really bad, or you have a really bad colicky baby. And for sure the labor part was my bad part. But we are through that now. Even having an unexpected C-section, we are doing well, and I recovered very fast and very well as well. People often comment that I'm moving around well and that I am doing a lot for someone that had a C-section. I feel great. My doctor did amazing. And I am so thankful that I had the staff that I had. We had a nurse named Ashley, and she is the best. We had her from 7 a.m. to, or I guess I'm lying, so from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. over the night that we were there, and she left at about 7 a.m. and she said, well, it's so sad I'm not going to get to see your baby, or see you have a baby, but hopefully I'll be able to come over and visit you guys when you're in a recovery room. So I was like, okay, great, yes, come visit us, please. We loved you, whatever. Come to find out, she got to be in on my C-section, so she had just clocked in at about 7 p.m. and went straight into OR to prep for my C-section. And when I got into the OR, I saw her in there, and I said, Ashley, is that you? And she came over and talked to me and said she had just got on the clock, and that's the first place they put her, is in the OR to help deliver my baby. So we were so excited for that. And we did find out that her little daughter is in need of some prayers. So if any of you guys are praying people, her daughter is battling cancer. She's only about 2, and she could use as many prayers as she could get. So if you guys just want to pray for Ashley's daughter to get better, feel good, and have great medical staff, that would be amazing, and I would appreciate all the prayers we can get for her. But other than that, we are doing great. Be watching for her 2-month update, which should be coming very soon, and we'll see you guys in our next video. Don't forget to subscribe.